what went well, what needs work. And like that is like, because it's very easy for me to be like, oh, I asked a lot of really good questions. That was great. You know?
Well, I did great.
Right. I've had some experiences this week that have really asked me to address my ego. And it's always painful when that happens.
Absolutely. The ego battles internally are not easy to go down.
It sucks, but like I know that that's what I need to be doing. And I think the first thing that really prompted it was my coach was really asking me, because something I've been looking into lately is education around being a coach. Because I've been insecure that I don't have formal education in coaching. And so I'm like, okay, wow, who the fuck am I to be a coach, right? Imposter syndrome. And so in that, you know, I'm like looking at all these other coaches and looking at all these different programs and things that I can go to. And so she's like, okay, what is it that you actually want in your business? What do you want to do? Like, how do you want to help people? Like, get very specific about this. And so I journaled about it. And the last thing that I wrote, and I'm glad I said this on my call, was that, and this, when I say it's going to sound very dramatic, I want to take people into the trenches of their trauma and pull them out swiftly within the hour. Which sounds great, like in a book or something, right?
I mean, it's very like poetic.
Yeah, right. Thank you. But like she had asked me, she's like, "Does that feel like it's coming from your ego or from your authenticity?" And I was like, you know, I didn't ask myself that question, probably on purpose.
Interesting.
But you know, when she asked me that, I was like, actually, yeah, that does sound like an ego statement, because it's like, oh, look what I can do.
Get you out these trenches. Let's go.
Right.
Get on my back.
Right. It's like,
Carry
that's
it out.
not what this is about.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. She's like, you can hold space for people as they navigate through their trauma, right? Like, you can hold space for them and be there for them. But like, it's not my job to like dig the hole, right? And like tell them to get down there, you know? So, and then pull them out of it. It just really opened my eyes to, okay, what am I doing as a coach? How am I providing value to people as a coach? Who am I, right? Because I think that's what it's coming back to is like, okay, who am I showing up as in my coaching? Like, and this is something I actually, a practice that I started doing last night after my support group meeting, was just doing, and I've been doing this mentally after my calls, but I started actually writing this stuff out, was doing a debriefing after each session to be like, okay, what went well, what needs work? And like that is like, because it's very easy for me to be like, oh, I asked a lot of really good questions. That was great. You know?
Well, I did great.
Right. There is still things that need work, right? Like there are calls that I've been on where I'm just like, I don't know what to say next, you know? So it's really lately just been like, look at because I think when I first started my healing journey, it was like, look at the role you played in these relationships that you had that were toxic. Okay, I can do that. And now it's like, okay, now that you're in this coaching space, look at how you're showing up as a coach. Look at how, you know, because in my mind, it's like, you know, be the example, but like, don't let that get to your head. And so it's just been a lot of learning this week. And something I realized this week too was that like I did something so I reached out to a few people to set up calls. People that I've seen online that have been struggling with different things, or people I've talked to that have been struggling. And one person in particular, like I overthought all of these different scenarios about what I'm gonna say and how she's gonna react and all this stuff. And this was all through text, and I finally eventually just sent a voice memo. But then in that, what happened was a couple other people had hit me up right afterwards, and I was like, oh. Even though it was difficult and I did it anyways, there's some sort of like positivity in that. There's some sort of positive momentum in that.
Yeah. It's like, all right, he did the thing, release more for him.
Right, exactly. So I think that's where like showing up even when you're uninspired is so important. Showing up even when I'm uninspired is important, because it's like you're not always going to feel that inspiration. And as a coach, right, like if I really want to be full-time, I have to keep showing up regardless of what's going on. It was just really eye-opening to to experience all of that. And there is a place that I'm looking at going to for, we'll say, schooling, but it's more really like a deep dive into myself. And so in that, my coach has told me, like, yeah, you will experience an ego death. And I'm like, within this week, I'm like, I think that's what I'm needing. Like, it just feels like that's something that I need. So
I want to bounce off something that you had said earlier. So prior to, you were saying that you want to show up as your authentic self and having reminders and going sort of like what worked during this call and what, you know, didn't, and all that kind of stuff, kind of like a reflect and refocus that we do in our mastermind. One thing I wanted to point out in that is we often drift through and become a version of an ego, which is basically who we think the environment expects us to be. And as we become this person, if we don't remind ourselves of who we wish to truly be in the world, we don't show up as that self.
that's so good. That's, yeah.
And this week, that was a realization that I was, you know, kind of throwing around in my mind, trying to like cook up the way to say it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, as you were saying what you were saying, it sort of just came out that way.
Yeah.
But essentially it is like that. We need reminders for who we are and remind ourselves of this all the time. The world's programming you. It's saying you're this, you're this, you're this, you're this. Do you agree? If you agree with it, you become it. If you don't agree with it, who are you? And then you have to ask yourself, well, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Claim those things, be that thing. And then through reaffirming that, it becomes stronger and stronger. You built the habit of being that person. You still need reminders occasionally, but those reminders change. It becomes the conversations you have, it becomes the actions you do, it becomes everything else. But it started off as, I am strong, I am this, I am. Claim the thing you want to be and then define what that is.
I like that you said that, because I think the focus that my mind went to was being the example. And yes, I think there's a part of that that's important, but also like, and maybe my mind is not viewing this entirely correctly, because being the example is like being yourself, but also holding space for others to be themselves and to be human, right? And so like, yeah, in a coaching role, right, the perception online anyways is that the coach is the authority, but that's not necessarily true. We are equal. And I think I need to remind myself of that, right? Because even though I'm the one asking questions and getting this person to look deeper into themselves, it is still their life, it is still their choice, it is still whatever they need or they want in the relationship, right? I am showing up for them, and so I am no better than anybody else. And like you said, just like looking at yourself and reminding yourself of like, who are you? Who do you want to be in the world, right? Because one thing that I've been like thinking about this week is like wanting to give back in a meaningful way, right? And it's like, okay, I first have to be able to give to myself. I'm speaking monetarily in this point, right? Like I have to be able to pay my bills and feed myself and all of those things, right? First, before I can even try to give to somebody else. And so it's like, spiritually and emotionally, I have to do that too. But I feel like, just like with greed, it gets to a point where like, how selfish are you going to be? Right? Before you start giving some of that to other people.
Absolutely.
And I think it's interesting too, because I'm thinking now about the chakras, right? And when I took a chakra class earlier this year, and we worked on opening all of them up, and the one that I struggled with the most was right here. So that's the heart chakra, and in the back, right, when you're receiving it from back here. When you're giving from this way. And something I deal with a lot is back pain up here in upper back. And I just recognized that yesterday because it was right in the center of my back. And I'm like, So receiving in the heart space, receiving love, maybe that's what I'm thinking of right now, is just receiving love. It's much more difficult for me to do than to give love. And so I'm wondering how much of that like just needs to be me receiving love for myself and for my higher power. I don't know.
Well, through everyday small decisions that you make, you'll start to figure that out. Giving yourself a little bit more love. Small decisions.
Yeah, and I think, like I said earlier, this was before we started filming it, but it goes back to self-trust, right? Like saying something and then doing what I said I'm gonna do.
Yes.
I think that's what builds self-trust.
I agree.
Right?
Yes. If
Like, even as I was drinking coffee this morning, I'm like, how many fucking times have I told you guys, I'm not gonna drink coffee anymore? I finally realized why I do it, and it's fine, but like, if you're gonna say, if you say you're gonna do something, actually follow through with that. And it, like, at this point, right, it doesn't even include your interactions with other people. It's like, trust yourself first. Like, say a thing, do the thing. Stick by that decision, right? And then just like, because then like I said, it builds self-trust, and then others will see that you're willing to say something and do it, and then that builds trust in your relationships. I'm like, damn.
It's so crazy how it all plays. At the end of the day, all we truly have is our word. And if we're giving ourselves a word that's not true, who can we trust?
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, if I say I'm gonna be a person, or I'm gonna go to the gym today, well, I better make plans to do so and do it.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's a lot of the times we realize that we fall to the level of our systems. Atomic Habits, James Clear, he talks about this. And essentially all that means is like, what we know is what we fall back on. If you've learned your entire life from your environment, like, okay, like, I'm not a fit person. We watch Netflix, we eat, chill on the couch and do these things, right? So you go home, you look at some people, you want to be that version. You're like, I want to be fit. You plan to go to the gym, but then you come home and you just let those habits start because that's what you've learned this entire time. You didn't place a new habit consciously in there. You didn't learn a new system to fall back on. So you have to create consciously a system to make yourself a type of person who goes to the gym. So that might be like, okay, I'm gonna start by just putting my shoes on, get my gym clothes on, get my bag, go to the gym and show up. And these are the steps I'm gonna take. So now you just do any of these small little things and you start to just habitually do these things daily. I'm gonna just put my shoes on, get my jacket, get my bag, go to the gym. Shoes, jacket, bag, gym, shoes, bag. And you do those small things every day and that becomes the system. And slowly but surely now, you just put your shoes on, you got your jacket, you got your bag, you're at the gym, you're like, oh, how did I get here?
Right.
And now you're the person who's doing it because you built systems to fall back on. So on your days where you're not feeling that good, you go home right after work, you've habitually not sat on the couch, but you've put your shoes on, grabbed your jacket, grabbed your bag, and went to the gym. So now you're not having a great day, you come home, you just put your shoes on, grab your jacket, get your bag. Yeah, now you're just gone. So we fall to the level of the systems that we have, not like to the goals and aspirations we want. Right. So you have to reverse engineer your identity and say, who am I? Like, what are the things that I just do?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I'm glad you brought that up. Because I feel like even in that there's some grace that can be brought about, right? Because it is like, if you did grow up in an environment where all we do is watch Netflix and eat food and sit on the couch, right? But you want to change. It's like, okay, well, I know that I may be repeating this pattern, right? Because that's what I'm thinking of right now, because there are certain patterns that I find myself in and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I have done this shit for 6 months straight. When are we going to stop?
Yeah, like, oh man, when am I wake up to my patterns, my awareness, become self-aware.
Like, and I think the thing for me right now is like when it comes to just the money that I spend on groceries, right? And the money outside of that. It's just like, how many Fridays in a row are you going to spend your first $7 on tropical smoothie and then have less money for groceries? How many times are we going to do this before we stop doing this, right?
So let me ask you, what is the system that you would fall back on to replace the $7 tropical smoothie transaction?
Well, it's a great question. I actually bought the ingredients to make the shit at home. And right now, what I need to figure out is how do I make it taste as good as what they do without adding loads of sugar in it so that I don't feel tempted to go there.
Facts.
Because if I make my own at home and it tastes almost just as good as what they make, then I won't feel that temptation, right? Because I've already had my smoothie for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what if I just have those smoothies every morning instead of, oh, it's Friday, just got paid, let's go get,
Yeah. Suggestion, I mean, let your bananas get just a little bit on the sweeter side, right?
There you go.
That way it's like more of that natural sweetness.
Yeah.
Not having any sugars in there.
It's a good idea.
Back when I used to do trop, I would just always take out any of these sugars or replace it with honey. So I had like less sugars in there. So when I started to make my own, it was just like, oh yeah, just add my honey in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I don't even do the honey.
Right.
But I mean, it's just those small things. You just gotta, like you said, find the recipe that works, so now you can replace it. It doesn't feel different.
Right. And like that's what I'm wondering too. Is like, right now it's only once a week, but there were weeks where it was like 3 times a week. I'm just like, bro, that's like $20. Like you could spend. I appreciate that. You can spend that amount of money on all of the ingredients and have them every single day of the week.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Right? And not feel guilty about it. So it's like, it is like, right, like, and that's where I think for me, grace has turned into self-sabotage. Right? Because in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm using this to fuel myself or nourish myself so I can keep doing shipped orders. But then it's like, okay, but at the same time, you have a certain amount of money each week for groceries.
Yeah.
So like, dedicate it for that. Go ahead.
Is there like a time frame or a certain like cue that makes you crave that smoothie? Because if it is, you can understand the stimulus response and be like, maybe have a smoothie ready in your fridge already.
Yeah.
So when you got that stimulus, I just gotta finish this real quick order. I'm gonna go home, get my smoothie.
Yeah.
And then it's like the craving's already set. It's already satisfied because you already know, like, when I'm driving down this street and I see the trop.
Yeah, it's a great question. I want to say that it's, and it's funny that I'm going to say this because you made a video on this. I didn't watch all of it, but lack of preparation. So my food that I buy every week usually lasts me until about Thursday, and then Friday is when I get paid from Shipped. And Friday and Saturday I'm usually doing Shipped, and so I'm like, okay, well, I don't have any food in the house, so let's just go out and get something to eat, right? And so even I've been like wondering, do I just take Fridays off and go grocery shopping and do all that right on that day? But I think just in my groceries every week, like just making that a thing, like just buy the ingredients for it. That's my breakfast. And even putting it in the freezer, right, and like coming home to it would be helpful. But yeah, I think lack of preparation is I don't know if that would be a cue, but that feels like the problem.
Gotcha.
That's the problem right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving myself enough food each week to stop me from going. Because I think what it is like on Friday and Saturday, I'm like, I don't really have anything in the house that I want to eat, so let me just go out and get something. Like, nothing at home sounds satisfying.
Yeah.
And then I get home and I'm like, I actually have food here that I could eat. Like I could make lentil tacos or something and make it taste really good with taco seasoning and, easy shit. So yeah, I don't know. It's a battle. It's been a battle. It's always the battle against yourself that's the hardest, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But I think one area that I've been really getting better at is not overspending fun money, right? So I think that's been like one change that's been coming. But regardless, just a lot of ego work this week, and a lot of like desiring to let go of some of it. And I looked up ego death on YouTube, and it's like it's never going. Like you can go through an ego death and just completely like drop everything that used to be you, and you still have more.
Oh, hell yeah!
Like, and that's what I'm realizing.
You're creating a new ego now.
Right. Until you're dead, you're gonna be going through that. I'm just like, fuck, bro.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about it. Like, so there was a video that Justina told me about where you basically should be as many people through this life as you want to be.
So that's making. So this is something that maybe this is what you're getting at too. I don't know. I'm just interrupted you, but the quote that's come up in my mind through all of this is the secret to life is to die before you die. Right?
As many times as that may be for yourself.
That's, oh man.
Because like, again, like I feel like myself, through life, I've had so many bubbles, social bubbles, where I'm like, oh, here, a super athletic person. Oh, now he's the nerd. Oh, now he's the anime dude. Now he's like, I've been everywhere. I've been in every type of group I can fit in everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's like I've lived a lot of different lives in this life. But it's like, at the same time, I know there's a whole bunch out there that I don't know. And because of things that I do know, I have to lose some of these beliefs. I have to lose some of these things that I know to be able to live that life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you gotta be willing to die.
That's huge. Yeah, and that even makes me think of an Abraham quote that I heard was like, if your beliefs aren't falling away every day, it's not working. Like, there's something, right? Like, you have to be willing to let go of these beliefs. And the way that they describe it is just that beliefs are thoughts you continue to think. And so it's like, when is that thought not serving you anymore, and when can you start letting that go, right? So like, really just looking at thoughts that I have now and just being like, okay, is this actually helping me? Is this making my life easier or more difficult?
Yeah.
Right? Like, am I making this harder on myself than it needs to be? Probably. So like, let's let go of that belief, take on something else, you know? Even recently I've been looking at like money beliefs of like, you know, having this idea that I'm money hungry, or that I'm a bad person because I love money, right?
But you can't do any good in the world without it.
Right, exactly. And so it's like, okay, now I have to go back to myself and like, okay, I am a good person. I know that I've done good things with money in the past. I know that by having more money, I will do more good things. So allow yourself to have money, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a tool. It's an extension. Like essentially, again, if we think about it, like back in some of the videos that I made, like, what is money? It's just value I've created.
Right.
So someone's willing to pay you for things that you've done. So
Right.
like, if you have a lot of it, it means you've done a lot of things for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or one major thing for one person.
Right.
So really just look at it as like, how much I've given back. This is like the life bank account for how much I've given.
That's nice.
Yeah.
See, I think that's my thing, is like I have to focus more on the giving.
And that's just the receiving that comes from giving.
Right.
The byproduct.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the chakra thing you mentioned before. Maybe you're focused too much on the receiving. That as you just give, it'll just open.
Yeah.
Like, you are giving, yes.
Right.
But what if you just like, just forget about, like, not forget about receiving, but like it just opens up as you just focus on just the giving.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and that's almost making me think back to that conversation too that I mentioned earlier, where it was like I was overthinking the giving, whereas when I dropped the drama around it, I just gave. It's like, hey, what would it mean to you if we got on a call together? What would it mean for your potential kids? What would it mean for your future?
Now it's for
and now
them
I'm
to decide.
receiving.
Yes. Drop it all.
Yeah.
Let it come in like water.
That's
Let it
good.
flow.
Yeah, I feel like that's given me a new perspective on being like water, so I can flow. Woo! All right. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Heck yeah! Powerful stuff,
Yeah.
guys. Powerful stuff.
I mean, these are the conversations that we have in our mastermind, right?
All the time. Like, this is just normally not on camera, so like, this is
Right.
amazing.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I was telling you earlier, like, I was looking up different concepts around masterminds and how people run them and all this kind of stuff, and like, ours isn't as structured as some of those, and I think I like it that way. You know, we have our reflect and our refocus, we have our time, you know, we have things that we need to stay on track with, but I like the idea that we just kind of flow with it, and just allow whatever comes up to come up, and just, we kind of bounce off of each other in that way. I think that's what I like about it, so.
Like, it works for our flow.
Right, exactly. Check out the Michigan Mastermind on the YouTube channel. This will probably go up there.
I think it's solid for everyone out there. Great information. We talked about the ego. We talked about understanding truly what it means to like rescript your life. Like, how do you do it?
Right.
Like, how can you get started on changing your life?
Right. I think one important thing too that I'm thinking of now is, like you said, like, we fall to the level of our systems, right? And I know James Clear talks about that. Brene Brown even brings up that James Clear talked about that. I think first we have to acknowledge that we have a system that we're falling to.
Yes, that
Right.
self-awareness of who am I?
Right. And what have I been doing, right? Because like for me, and I think this, I don't want to say for everybody because I don't ever like using that generalized term, but for me what I've realized is that I grew up following a certain set of rules and a certain way of being because of how I was raised, right? And so how I was raised was we barely have enough to get by. We're going to just get with whatever we have. We're going to figure it out. I have $5 at the end of the week. Great. That's what I've been continuing to fall back to.
Yeah.
I don't need to keep doing that.
Right. You have to let go of what does not serve you anymore.
Right.
What's really interesting,
Yeah.
I just thought about this, is the world of like our social media now gives you access to so many things you never knew. Like you can literally see the back door into a whole lifestyle that you didn't even know was possible. So now we can live vicariously through others and understand what their belief systems are, what their thought patterns are, how they're being taught, and accept them or not. And if we choose to do so, you're just tuning into a whole new life. You can literally just pick whose life do you want to start living like. And just like, that's cool. That's a cool. Why do you think that way? Ask them questions, shoot them a message, like communicate with the people and start to understand them and then maybe incorporate those things in your life. Yeah. It's like, it's so interesting. We have the ability to just change our life by just asking questions now.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think I often think about people with material success and I'm just like, how did you get there? Like what thought process got you there? What did you do to get yourself there? Right? And like, why am I not there? Like what is stopping? And I think a lot of it is dropping the ego. I'm not going to say everybody experiences that, right? But like for me, I think it's like also not having an ulterior motive, right? Like, oh, if I drop my ego, then I'll have a mansion.
Yeah.
That's ego. Right? Like, come on. Jesus Christ. God. It's a double-edged sword all the time.
Oh,
and that's like, that's been the sticking point for me with personal development. It's just like, you're in it now, bro. You can't get out.
Yeah. And once you go down the path, there is no turning back.
Right. You can't unknow something once you know it. Right.
Right. Now you just have to keep unraveling. Oh,
yeah. Dang.
My whole life, I realized that I have no idea what anything really is.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Dang.
It's nuts, but yeah. So thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate the time on this call, or like not really call, but like this conversation. Always a great time.
Yeah. If you found value in this, let us know what you found, what you got. Maybe you had a revelation. I don't know. I know I did.
Oh yeah, same here. This is like, again, this is what a mastermind is. We just brainstorm ideas, back and forth, and then all of a sudden you get these breakthrough ideas, and these breakthrough ideas can either shine in the form of like plans that you can take action on, or like, maybe it's just again like you were thinking of things that were limiting, and now you see it in a new perspective that is unlimited belief, and now you see a new way you can tackle a situation. So welcome to our channel.
Thanks for joining us. Like, comment, subscribe.
That's all.
Sweet.
Make yourself a priority.
Bye.